Hey, welcome to another edition of Kyle Meredith with. It's the interview series presented by WFPK at WFPK.org, Consequence, and the Consequence Podcast Network. Thanks as always for making your way here, checking out the series. You know what to do. Like what you see, what you hear, hit that subscribe button. I put out 3 new interviews every single week, so it's a great way to keep up with your favorite artists. I'm so excited to once again be talking to Madison Cunningham, brand new album, Revealer. Hello.
Hi, how's it going?
It's going great over here. And I am once again just like knocked out by what you've done musically on this new record. I was such a fan of the last record. I want to call it the first record. I know that's murky waters. It was the first record, is sort of the second record, but whatever the case, you have done it once again. This album is so good.
Thank you. That's very kind of you to say. Yeah, I think on principle, I consider the last album to be the first album.
Yeah,
We'll just say that.
Yeah, I'll go with that. That's entirely. Oh, and congratulations, because I do believe you're Grammy nominated again.
Yeah, I think that is true.
Yeah. So what is that like? What it was? Because you've done this before. You once or twice now been nominated, right? I think. And
Right.
this,
Yeah, twice before now,
yeah,
which is it's a very strange reality for me.
yeah, because that's got to be
Um,
something, right? I mean, I don't know about you, but it's like that that almost seems like the other world, like there's something that happens to other people, sort of thing. Like
yes.
I know this is the third time, but what are those feelings that you get when something like this happens?
That's a really good way to put it, because I think the first time that it happened, it felt like a break in the system or something, or like an accident. It really did. Like I felt the way I perceived myself and sort of the award sort of section of it all. I just felt like it was very far away. And in a lot of ways it is. It is and it isn't. Like I think what I experienced from going to sort of the before events that you're supposed to show up to for those things when you're nominated. I I remember wearing all black to one Spotify Grammy party, and a bunch of people gave me their drinks because they thought I was working there. So it's like the idea of you've made it, or you're famous and everyone knows who you are once you get nominated, was completely shattered. And that was really important for me. It
Yeah.
was, because it was important to see that it wasn't indeed as far away as I thought. And it was also really important to see that it wasn't and like I have to be careful when I speak about it, because I am very grateful, and it's always like you can't run away from the fact that it feels good to get a sort of nod like that. But it really helped me to put my head down and not make music to receive that again. I think when it came and went the first time, I fully expected it to be the last. And I really did. And I I don't know, you make peace with that. Even, and I didn't win, and I was still able to be like, I want to just make music that's good, and whether that's acknowledged or not, that's okay, as long as I believe in it. And that's much harder said than done, but I really do believe that that's the right way to make art, and it's the right motive.
Well, I'm happy to hear that, and it's working well for you. And that is hilarious to hear that they were giving you your drinks, because unfortunately at a party like that, you can't even rely on tips. It's not like you could I'm going to use this to
No,
my advantage. Like that's just, you get nothing.
there's just a bunch of drunk, well-meaning people that just didn't want to be responsible for their glasses anymore, which is fine. I get it. But it was the perfect wake-up call for me.
And black's such a classic color, I would have thought, but
Right. I still think so. That's all I wear anymore.
well, let's get into Revealer. I mean, again, it for all the things that you just said, and that I've complimented already, it is such an outstanding record. And we've heard some things about it so far. I think you've said it a few times, like it at times was a difficult record, it sounds like, to make. Is that because of what you're writing about? And I'll let you talk about that some too. What, or was it, other things going on in your life? Like what exactly made this difficult when it was?
I mean, yeah, I think there was an element in writing the songs that were difficult because of what I was writing about, and sort of the work that it takes to dig that deep and to be sort of using yourself as the primary example of like someone not doing well. That's not an easy place to be, and it just honesty is not really an easy pill to swallow for any of us, but especially in terms of songwriting. And I think it also found me in the middle of COVID, and I just had a really hard time seeing through a broader lens. It just all felt so close and distorted and confusing that it just, like, I think writing was never a happy place for me. Writing the album, it just wasn't enjoyable. It just was all a lot of it was duty, and a lot of it was the duty to myself to like work these things out, and to because it does ultimately help to flesh them out on paper and in song. So yeah, I also have thought about past interviews where I've said, yeah, it was so hard to make this album, and then I've rolled my eyes at myself, because I'm like, you're so lucky to get to do this with your life. And I do think that, and to get to like make music and to quote unquote suffer over it. That's so like so poetic. But really it was just a lot uglier than that. Like it just is and was. And I've now adopted it in a very healthy way, because I think I can look back at these songs. I feel like there was something I was able to write beyond my situation, which means that it doesn't remind me of the situation that I was in necessarily. Like, I think it pays tribute to it, but I don't dread playing the songs. I really enjoy them. And yeah, I'm proud of that, at least.
Yeah. Well, I'll say that the poetry, it's well, I'm drawn to so many things, the guitar riffs, etc. But the poetry on this, because what you're talking about writing beyond, like, it wasn't, I don't think it was ever immediately obvious to me what you were writing about. I hear about the things as I read and listen to your interviews later. Of course, you talk about losing your grandmother and what's going on there, and how that works its way throughout the record. And those moments it's not like you say that, it is in these poetic ways that seem to mean, like, I like what I think I get most out of your writing is that I can study it, and wait for it, and kind of let it become these things to me. And I don't know, like, when you're writing it, I mean, because again, let's, if you don't mind, you have those personal moments, a loss of a dear one. Like, how did you want to approach that?
I mean, I don't know that I had time to think about how I wanted to approach it, because I think a lot of it was just happening, and all I knew was that I wanted to come out with something that felt like something that would maybe even be a progressive revelation to myself, because I think it's important to not be clear when nothing is clear, meaning, like, don't write from an unrealistic place because you wish it was that way. Just write from the place that you're in. And so I think I wasn't really thinking a whole lot about how I wished that it would come out. I was just trying to get something because there was a lot of songs that were written out of a place of just needing to have songs, and they will never, be seen or heard from again. And that's okay. That's for the better. That's like that's the process. I think what this last record taught me was to fall in love with the process, even the hardships of it. And I felt like I became an adult in songwriting this time, because I was faced with, like, not only deadlines, but like a really difficult year, and losing myself and finding it again, and realizing that there are songwriting tools that can write you out of situations. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I mean, we got to have our tricks to get us there. I think even the greatest writers probably have their tricks.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. I think that's all we have at the end of the day. Like there's talent, right? And there's
Mhm.
passion, but there's also just like practical, I guess, methods to get you out of your own head. And I had a lot of people in my life who were able to provide some of those. You know, I have a friend who I will often call upon and ask for advice, and I thought that really taught me a lot about musical community and how important that is, and to like be very honest with when you're struggling as a writer, and to look to other writers for advice and inspiration and all those things. And I leaned into that a lot.
Yeah. Well, I love, especially when the album opens up, you've got All I've Ever Known, and here you are in a van on the road, in a great tradition of second albums and songs about the road. It's almost like I feel like it's probably inescapable for a lot of artists. Like, and that's not a
Mm,
criticism at all. Like, that's just part of the deal. Like, if you land at a certain spot after the first record, if you get lucky and everything's kind of lining up and you get to take it out,
mhm.
like that second record. But do you find yourself like in that position? Do you lean into it?
Into like writing about the road.
Yeah, because there's also little moments that aren't specifically about the road, but you know, In From Japan is a song. Like, here we hear now we have places. Little
Yeah.
Tokyo is mentioned on All of Ever. You know, it's
Yeah.
those little moments right there throughout. It's
I do like the feeling of a record being sort of in transit, like it's going somewhere. And I think, you know, I guess I kind of picture me in this 15 passenger van for like a couple songs through the album, and then it just like crashes at some point. And then, you know, you're like getting out of the van, and you just like break a window to get out of it because it's like on its head. And then you're like, okay, now what is this world? What does it look like to be on land again? And I feel like, you know, that is what's so interesting about the sequencing of the album. Was that was the first All I've Ever Known was the first song that I wrote for it. um but it was literally written like days before the pandemic, and then everything else was me just trying to like you know, like find my way out of the darkness of of that time.
does Hospital find us after you've crashed? Is that where we are in the story at that point?
That might be the crash,
Okay.
honestly. And then everything gets worse.
Yeah. Where did that first line come from? I was thinking like when that first came up.
You'll Never See Me Dying, that
Yeah,
one,
yeah.
On Screen or Microscope. Oh, I don't know. I well, the first line that I had for that song was regret is like an infant that won't let you sleep it off. And I was excited about it. It made my wheels turn, and then I was like, I've got to find like a way to sort of at least set that line up or outdo it a little bit, because it's I think your song is as good as your first line.
Mm.
Like that kind of sets the tone. And so I don't remember how that one ended up coming to be. But I liked the idea of somebody just being really, you know, bratty to someone who's just trying to pry into their life and like have good intentions about it, but it's just like, you're never gonna get it. You're
Yeah.
never gonna know, because I'm not gonna let you have it. But the irony in that song is that this person is showing their cards the whole time, but they have like a lot of ego around the fact that like no one's in on the joke. No one can see what's happening, but it's like apparent to everybody. They're all just too nice to like, you know, let this person know it.
Yeah. I know there's a word for this and I forget what the word is, but I had misheard a line in there and
Oh,
didn't know that I had misheard. Because a lot of times when that happens, you think you've got the right line, you're singing
uh-huh.
along, and I was so impressed with what I thought you were saying. And I'm not less impressed, but once I read the lyrics, and it wasn't until I was actually studying for this interview that I read the lyrics, and I was like, wait a second, I've got this wrong. And it's in the chorus,
What
because you
was it?
say I'm always one man down, right? That's
Yeah.
the line. And I thought you said I'm always warming down, like the opposite of I'm warming up to something. And I was like, wow, that's a great line.
I'm
I'm
always
warming down.
warming down.
Yeah. So
Damn.
listen, I don't think anybody's got that yet. So if it works for you, you can
Thank
use it
you
for something.
very much, Kyle. I appreciate that.
um, I don't know. Anyway, it's
I'm
there.
always warming down. I'm gonna be thinking about that.
Yeah. Because
Wow.
I've never thought of the opposite. You warm up for something, but if you're always warming down for it, like It's a good line.
That isn't that like, I guess, to give like secrets away for songwriters, like that is the sort of like key to writing something that people are like, ooh, that's very clever.
Yeah.
All you do is just like change one thing that the ear is used to hearing, and then remove it with its sort of opposite or something, and then people are like, genius.
I mean, I think Nashville's made an entire industry out of doing just that right there. Like,
Right.
want to write a topical country, or not a topical, want to write a hot country song? Just flip a phrase. That's all it's
Yeah.
about. Yeah.
It's so true. Money is easy to make, it turns out. It's right there.
Speaking of other music too, you started the year with a bit of other people's music because you expanded the Wednesday EP. Were
Right.
those just left? We were talking about Poses and Jeff Buckley, Lover. Were those just leftover songs, or were those newly added to it? Like, and why did you want to expand it at that point?
Um, why did we expand it? I don't. Oh, I remember why. Uh, so those songs, every song on that EP were recorded for the same thing. I was doing this online. Like every Wednesday, I would release a cover. So that is why we called it Wednesday. And we added those two songs because we wanted to print vinyl.
Mm.
And it was just, the EP was just a little bit too short to make it worth it. So we added a deluxe version, and then we added one of my original songs to it as well. I was going on the road, and that's why we did it.
So it's necessity. Is it really?
It was desperation, I guess.
Oh God, I loved him though. I mean, your version of Lover is so good. With Buckley's stuff there, and you've talked about Jeff. I've been like, Grace is Grace. It's one of the greatest albums of all time. Have you ever spent any time with Sketchers to My Sweetheart the Drunk?
I think I've scoured the internet and streaming platforms for everything that he's ever done.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I became just obsessed with him, unlike any other artist. He is I said this the other day, and I'd never said it before, but it made sense. I felt like I was very like haunted by him. Like it was this really interesting feeling of just like he really affected me as an artist, but also just like his sound and his spirit, and also the fact that like right now he'd be 52 or something, and he'd be probably making music we all still really looked up to, and that just that can break your heart a million times over.
Yeah, I mean, especially because like I've listened to that record since the record, whatever compilation. It's hard to call it because it's Sketches, but it was like I think it just would have been. It probably would have been looked, because the Witch's Rave and New Year's Day. I mean, all of those songs on there. It's yeah. Anyway, it's not a question. I'm just happy to find someone else to talk about Jeff Buckley with today.
I answered it though for your non-question.
And one more on the other people thing too. You did Passengers with Aoife O'Donovan, and that's another one of my favorite songs of the year. I would just love to hear about that song and friendship, and anything you got for it.
Yeah. Aoife and I met a handful of years ago. I want to say through Live From Here, that radio show that I used to duet partner with Chris Thiele. I think I did 25 shows with him. That was a really that was like a college course on the most difficult music you've ever done or never done. And we just hit it off. She is one of the most hilarious people that I know, and I know Joe Henry, who produced that record Age of Apathy, and they, during the pandemic, they reached out for me to add some guitar and sing, and so I did that remotely. And I just am amazed at how that record feels like it could have been accomplished in one sitting, but I'm pretty sure every player was just like amateurly trying to just engineer themselves and make it feel right. And also I say amateurly really for myself, because I was having a hard time, but it worked out.
Yeah, it's cool, and the riffs are good in there. And I mean, then that's, I think, What you and I have talked one other time. It was a phone interview during the first record, and I remember thinking like, I just can't gush about her riffs the entire time because they're so interesting. But once I caught wind that Matt Chamberlain does some drumming on here, I thought that's really interesting because for as much as you work the fretboard, or for what it sounds like to me, you like, what are you looking for in a drummer? Because Matt's one of my favorite drummers of all time.
Me too. I mean, sometimes I look for somebody who is willing to play drums in a way that isn't always the conventional way of playing drums, and I think that's the most interesting music to me, is music that sort of T-bones you and doesn't give you any indication that it's gonna go where it does. And I think Matt has all of those instincts and more. He's so proficient and such an accurate shot. Like, he's always hitting the target. And that one song that we did together, Anywhere, was in Seven, and he had one of his own solo projects that I got to sing on, and hearing him, I was like, oh, he loves all of that stuff. Like, that is his wheelhouse, that's his world that he I think relishes. And so we brought him in for this song. I had zero lyrics. I just knew that we had a whole arrangement, and he seriously nailed it in like probably 4 takes. I think the 4th take, it was like this fully formed idea, crossing all of these really different sections, and it kind of blew my mind. And that's just the sort of player that he is. He's a stone cold killer, but very sensitive and creative and in tune with the song.
Yeah,
well, so he played on a handful, and I just could not respect and love him more.
You two work well together on that. It really does. He seems to bring that out. I mean, when I think of some of the stuff he's done with Tori and with Fiona and even with Painted Shield that he's been doing lately, I mean, it always just adds that. Yeah, I love it anyway.
It's all my favorite record. I mean, he played on Regina Spektor stuff, like almost all of the records that I've ever loved. He's played on, and it's kind of, it's so mind-blowing to me.
Madison, I love Revealer, and that's obvious because I've said it so many times. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk about it today. I so appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for taking the time for me.
And thanks to my guest. Also, thanks to you for checking out the episode in the series. Before you get out of here, hit that subscribe button. Again, you get 3 brand new interviews every single week. New one every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at right here on YouTube, or of course anywhere in podcast land, including iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podchaser, NPR, or WFPK.org as well. A great way to keep up with your favorite artists and discover new ones as well. Then after that, actually head over to WFPK.org. That's where I do a show Monday through Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern. It's an hour full of song premieres, music news, anniversary spins, bonus interviews, Monday through Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern at WFPK.org. Consequence has your music and film news. You can also find me on the social media spots, Facebook, Instagram, mostly on Twitter. All 3 of them, the address is at Kyle Meredith. Do hope you like and follow along. That does it for another edition. I'm Kyle Meredith. I'll see you next time.